Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Ringside Wrestling Entertainment. This is Joel Perez here for your weekly episodic news show. This is Behind the Mic, and it is Behind the Mic episode number 62. Welcome everybody. Of course, this is the edition post Greatest Royal Rumble. We're back here on Behind the Mic, and I'm sorry that Behind the Mic as of late has been inconsistent, and that's partly because of me, and also because I've been very busy, but also the show just takes a lot to prepare. I made it simpler for me because I avoided having to change the number each and every single time we do Behind the Mic. In that graphic that you see in the beginning of the show, you see now it's just Behind the Mic. You want to know what number it is? Look at the title of the video. But each and every single week, I had changed the graphic and the number to 61 or 62 or 63 or whatever the number might be. And it, first of all, used to take forever to get the colors aligned. And the colors would never be aligned to begin with. So I just gave up at this point, making the process easier for me, making it more enjoyable for you guys, because you're going to be getting Behind the Mic. At least this is going to motivate me at least a little bit to do Behind the Mic on a more regular basis, because this has been one of the more inconsistent shows, and this is a show that I want to push as the main thing on the Ringside Wrestling YouTube channel. If there's a podcast done here, it is Behind the Mic. And of course, this is where we cover all the biggest news in the WWE for the week. Not that much news because most of the news is coming out of the Greatest Royal Rumble, and we covered a lot of what had to be said on the Greatest Royal Rumble in the Greatest Royal Rumble review, which was uploaded at around 8 o'clock Eastern Time last night on the Ringside Wrestling YouTube channel, and I highly suggest that you go check that out. But I wouldn't say that this is big news that we have this week, more that it is interesting news that we have on Behind the Mic this week. A lot of interesting news that you're going to be raising your eyebrows to, and of course, that has to do with Batista. Batista apparently ready to retire if WWE does not return his calls. That's a very, very interesting story right there. We have the reason why the likes of Sami, Zayn, and The Big Show were not allowed to compete at the Greatest Royal Rumble, even though they were originally advertised. So that's a very interesting story, and it has to do, again, with WWE just taking that Saudi money and not worrying about whether they're being hypocritical or not. We also have news on whether or not the women, like previously suggested by WWE Hall of Famer on his podcast, Jerry Lawler, we have news on the women apparently not receiving a payday for the Greatest Royal Rumble, despite not being allowed to compete on the show. We have a hilarious news story, which I cannot wait to talk about. It is Vince McMahon's reaction to the historic Titus O'Neil botch, the best part of the Greatest Royal Rumble itself. Titus O'Neil making himself Titus World Slide. Anyways, we have Elias, news on Elias being seen training with the Undertaker. Again, more that interesting news. And then we have news that could hint at the future of the WWE, because Cody Rhodes talks about whether or not he would re-sign with the WWE. That's going to be very interesting news as well. So those are your news stories for Behind the Mic. Of course, there's all that and so much more right here on Behind the Mic. But before we get into that, I just want to tell you guys to make sure to go check out all the content. As previously mentioned, Greatest Royal Rumble Review, Greatest Royal Rumble Review, Greatest Royal Rumble Review. It's up on the channel. Make sure to go check it out. We talk about everything regarding that 5-hour long pay-per-view network special, whatever the hell you want to call it. It was from the King Abdullah Sports Center in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia. So clearly we were not in our element as far as reviewing and watching, and as far as WWE goes, putting on a normal show that you would usually see in the States. But make sure to go check out that review, as well as preview and predictions to see my mindset going into that show. And of course, Monday Night Raw and Smackdown reviews from earlier this week. Make sure to go check it out. We're talking stuff not just regarding the Rumble, because that was the go-home show to the Greatest Royal Rumble, but also to Backlash. So those videos still have some equity to them. Make sure to go check that out, as well as to subscribe to the Ringside Wrestling YouTube channel. Like I always say, if you have not subscribed yet, I have no idea what you're waiting for. Everything regarding the WWE Raw reviews, Smackdown reviews, pay-per-view reviews, just like you've seen last week, pay-per-view preview and predictions, Behind the Mic, where we talk about all the biggest news in the WWE each and every single week, like you're watching right now, as well as anything else that WWE puts on. Only thing is NXT that we don't review. Even then, I want to start reviewing NXT, but that's a hassle that I'll get into on another day. But make sure to go check out all that other content, because of course there's so much other content to go check out. And of course, make sure to subscribe. If you enjoy what you're hearing here, make sure to click on that like button, click on that dislike button. If you don't enjoy what you're hearing here, I have no problem with that. And of course, make sure to leave your comments in the comment section below. Be logical, because of course your opinion is just as important as mine. But for now, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to ask you guys a favor, and that is, of course, to stay tuned, because for now, we're going straight into the news stories. And of course, we start off here with this news story on the Animal, Batista. Of course, he has been very vocal about the fact that he is willing to return to the WWE. He went on JR's podcast not so long ago, and he was talking about how he wants to re-sign, and he wants to come back and do the full package deal when he does. But according to this news article, Batista gives more details on WWE not returning his calls, and he's ready to retire if a deal can't be reached within the next year. This week, Dave Batista gave more details on what went down between himself and WWE back in January, when they were in talks for him to team with Ronda Rousey at WrestleMania. Dave Meltzer of the Wrestling Observer newsletter was the first to report that WWE's first choice was The Rock. They weren't able to get him for the show, so that is when they called Batista. This is insider stuff, and I usually don't share, he told the Chad Dukes 106.7 radio show. I'm really an old school kayfabe guy, but they reached out to me earlier this year to possibly come back and do that thing with Ronda. And I said that I would be willing to do it only if we tease something for me and Hunter to go to Mania next year. He continued, and they said, yeah, that would be great. I love that idea. And I said, well, that's great. I'll come back a few times during the year, and we'll tease it, and we'll work it, and we'll milk it, and we'll go to Mania, me and Hunter, next year. Oh, I love that idea. Let's do it. So that's Batista's mindset right there. He says that he talked with WWE for about 3 weeks, and they just stopped calling him. He said, I sent Hunter a text. I was like, hey man, I don't know if you put any more thought into what's going on. I'm really excited about the possibilities, and I literally never heard back from them. They just stopped talking to me about it. Man, I don't know what else I can do to try to. I want to end my career the right way. I'm faithful and loyal to the WWE. I'm proud of being from there, and I want to do good business with them, but they don't make it easy, you know? They just don't. Batista noted that he's doing well financially and he doesn't need to be in WWE, but he wants to end his career the right way because he loves working in front of wrestling crowds. He added, I just want to end my career the right way, and next year will be the last opportunity. So if we can't make something happen by next year, then I'm just going to officially hang it up. So that's what Batista's saying right there. He's been very vocal about the fact he has this pretty notable quote from somewhere, I forget where, that he wants to return to be a wrestler, but he doesn't want to deal with the WWE. And I feel like what we've seen right here is exactly what he's talking about. The WWE is just this complete machine where they will just scrub you out. And with the schedule Batista has, I mean, He's doing a lot of things in Hollywood. I mean, he is a character in the Guardians of the Galaxies. I mean, Avengers Infinity War just released yesterday, and I myself am foaming at the mouth to go see it. So clearly Batista is doing big things. He doesn't need the WWE. Would I like to see a Batista return? WWE doesn't necessarily need Batista either. They have all the talent in the world, and I'd hate to see that talent pushed to the side just to give Batista a push in the WWE. I mean, if they plug him in to the right role, I think this can be absolutely fantastic. Batista working with guys like AJ Styles, working with guys like Andrade Cien Almas, Samoa Joe, Roman Reigns, that can be great for business. But this idea of him coming back and working with Triple H, like he is so much plugged in each and every single interview talking about the WWE, I mean, I find that ridiculous. You already had your WrestleMania match with Triple H 10 years ago, more than that, 13 years ago. WrestleMania 21, was it? That's when you won the World Heavyweight Championship. You had that moment. I don't know why he is so keen on recreating it. I mean, I see, because they probably have a great friendship and he wants to end it off in the ring with somebody he loves. And I mean, realistically, it's not going to impact too much of the card for WrestleMania 34. I mean, Triple H and Batista, they aren't necessarily two active roster members unless that's for a championship, which I doubt it would be. Though they're not taking opportunity away from anybody else, because those are two separate acts. Triple H comes out and wrestle when he wants to. Same thing with Batista. He's not in the WWE as a current roster member. So they really wouldn't be taking away opportunity from anybody else. But my deal is that realistically, you think about it, and that's not something that anybody would like to see. I'd much rather see Nakamura Batista, Lesnar Batista, Reigns Batista, Joe Batista, Styles Batista, but he's so in with this Triple H match. And I mean, realistically, WWE had the perfect opportunity to do something like that this year. Why not put Batista in there with Ronda Rousey? Triple H was in that match. That would have been a way to say, well, you got your match in some way, shape, or form, so be happy. Be happy. But I mean, I don't know. WWE seems to be blacking out on Batista, and I don't know if they're necessarily going to bring him in. I mean, realistically, you have a star like that, somebody who's doing big things in Hollywood, who's a very, very serviceable person in the ring. You have somebody like that, pretty much, I guess you can say, fiending to come back, if you want to put it in the modern day lingo terms. He wants to come back, and you're sidelining him like that? I mean, I don't know where WWE is coming from. They should at least be able to find some role for Batista, especially in a part-time role. I mean, WWE loves their part-timers, so I don't know where they're coming from with that. Maybe he's asking for too much money. Maybe his creative ideas aren't lining up. You know what they always say, it's either cash or creative. That's, of course, Jim Ross's famous saying. It's either cash or creative. It can be either of those two things, and right now, it might be both. So we don't know what the deal is with Batista. He says that he's ready to retire if WWE doesn't have a deal for him by next year's time. So that's some big, big news right there, and definitely interesting to see how WWE is going to handle that situation, which Batista has no problem being vocal in interviews about. So for now, we move on here to the next news story. We move on here to a news story about the women heading into the Greatest Royal Rumble, which has clearly been one of the most controversial news stories that we've seen heading into this entire event. They've banned multiple people from coming to the show, two of which we're going to talk about later on, Sami Zayn and The Big Show. And the women have clearly stirred up a lot of controversy through the fact that they weren't going to be able to compete at the Greatest Royal Rumble. And I gave you my most in-depth thoughts on this during my Greatest Royal Rumble preview and prediction, so make sure to go check that one out. But Earlier this week, Jerry Lawler stated on his podcast that he believed that the female WWE roster would be getting a nice payday for being excluded from the Greatest Royal Rumble show. Lawler's statement may just be his own speculation and not based on anything he's heard from anyone in management because, as noted on Twitter by Dave Meltzer of the Wrestling Observer newsletter, there has been no indication given to the women about a payoff for this show. It would be a good gesture on WWE's part. It should also be noted that there were house shows scheduled for this weekend, but they were canceled so that they could get the male rosters to Saudi Arabia. If I were in charge of WWE, this is the article speaking, I would at least compensate the women for the pay they are losing for the canceled show. Here's what Meltzer said on his Twitter in response to fan tweets. The fan said, "Any truth to the women in WWE getting paid a day from the show?" And Dave Meltzer said, I haven't been told that, or they haven't been told that. Another person, Dave, these guys are just desperate attention seekers. They're physically not able to understand that the women's division have reportedly been paid a lot of money. So I think they are happy, get a night off and getting paid. That's the modern dream. They don't realize the rules of Saudi. Dave Meltzer said, "You were saying something that none of the women have been told or believe at this point in time. It was speculation by Lawler that, if accurate, none of the women have heard it. That's what Dave Meltzer had to say about that. So, I mean, he shut that down completely. None of the women have been paid. And I mean, WWE, if I was handling this situation with the controversy that has been caused, I'm sure that paying the women and having that leak into the rumor mill as being true, I mean, I would say that would have been better for WWE in the long run. Now, this might cause a bit more controversy. The fact that WWE, that option is out there, and WWE didn't choose to forgo upon it. What a lot of people were discussing, and I thought this was a very, very interesting idea about what the women should have been doing since they couldn't go to Saudi Arabia, is WWE should have put on some test women's only super show with both Raw and SmackDown women's as house shows in the States during the Greatest Royal Rumble week and weekend that they're going to be there. Maybe the day before or the day after the Rumble. You can put on some women's exclusive house shows and test the waters. See how that would do. Maybe to test a women's only WWE Network show. That would be a very, very interesting idea, and I would be very interested myself to see the numbers on a show like that and how that would perform. That would be fantastic. That would have been a great idea for WWE to go upon. It would have given the women an opportunity there to shine themselves. But WWE did not decide to go that route. They didn't, and I feel like that's very, very unfortunate. I mean, at the very least, the women aren't competing. I'm probably, this is just me guessing here, a lot of the women are probably offended that they couldn't go. They're taking it the wrong way. I mean, at least giving them a nice payday would have paid off. I mean, realistically, if you're a woman in the WWE, you're saying, thank God I don't have to do all those hours of travel. Thank God I'm getting these couple days off. And that's probably how they're looking at it. We're getting these days off. We can relax. We can hang out. Because the WWE schedule is a very taxing one. And that's probably the way the women are looking at this. At least most of them, I would assume. But, I mean, a payday to silence those controversial haters out there, I mean, that wouldn't be the worst thing. My stance on this was that realistically, WWE is just doing business. They're going into Saudi Arabia, and apparently the number of money that they were getting was $200 million. Now, I mean, I am no fool, and I'm sure you are no fool. Any businessman would not refute $200 million. I know I certainly wouldn't. So WWE clearly, in attempts to expand, took those $200 million easily. They didn't have to think twice about that one. But in exchange, they have to conform. They're going into another country. They have to conform to the Saudi Arabian culture. They can't just go in there breaking laws. They made it very, very clear at the Greatest Royal Rumble. They got pretty political about it, and they were saying that this is part of Saudi Arabia's Entertainment 2030 reform, or whatever the hell it was, and that Saudi Arabia is modernizing. They're giving women more opportunity. It might be late in the game, but they're starting to give women more opportunity, and there will come a day where the women will be able to compete on that show. And WWE, of course, is going to be the first ones to brag about it. They love doing things like that, where they're the first to do that. They're the first to get women to do that here. So, I mean, women in Saudi Arabia, they might not have all the rights they have here, but again, you have to conform to those laws. And WWE did the same, not just with the women, but also with superstars who were of Jewish descent, I heard, a Big Show. And, I mean, Paul Heyman was able to go to the Greatest Royal Rumble, so I'm not sure about that. But Sami Zayn, because he's of Syrian descent, was not allowed to go, which we'll discuss in further detail. So WWE had to conform to quite a couple things here, and it's going to cause controversy, as you would expect it to. But again, you're going into another country. You're going into somebody else's home. You're not just going to go to somebody else's home, and you're going to start, sleeping in their bed. You're not going to start doing that. You're not going to go into somebody's home and walk around naked. You're not going to do that. So, I mean, the women, you got to conform to their laws. As Saudi Arabia goes modernizing, I'm sure this is a 10-year deal. They're probably going to be having Greatest Royal Rumbles. Hopefully not in April. That's a whole nother story and a whole nother thing to talk about this event being in April and probably taking some spotlight away from WrestleMania. That's a whole nother story. But there's going to be Greatest Royal Rumbles for probably the next 10 years to come. And I think that WWE, for that very reason, one of these shows in the future, they are going to be able to get the women. And I mean, this is just a starting point, I guess you can say. This is the beginning. We will get to that point one day, and when that day comes, everybody is going to have a smile on their face. So that's my stance on that. For now, we move on here to the next story. We move on here to this news story on the American Nightmare, Cody Rhodes. And of course, he is one of the most, if not the most, successful person alongside Kenny Omega and the Bullet Club, Matt and Nick Jackson, in the indie scene. It was May 2016 when Cody Rhodes requested his release from the WWE, sending out an open letter to the public revealing his frustrations with the company. Since then, much of the WWE universe has hoped for a Cody Rhodes return under the moniker of Stardust at the time of his release. He didn't agree with the WWE on the direction of the character, and he felt ignored by the writers when he broached the topic. Flash forward to 2018 and Cody Rhodes has formed a great character in the indies, wrestling for the likes of Ring of Honor, TNA, now Impact Wrestling, and he made a huge impact in New Japan Pro Wrestling, taking on the names of the likes of David Finlay, Juice Robinson, and Kota Ibushi. Additionally, alongside the Young Bucks, Nick and Matt Jackson, Cody is producing what is expected to be the largest independent wrestling event to ever be held in Chicago, All In. While he is greatly missed by the WWE Universe, it seems Cody Rhodes has made the right decision to walk away from the company he built his name on. On Wednesday, a fan asked Cody on Twitter if he would ever return to the WWE. Cody's answer didn't leave much hope that the WWE Universe will see him again, at least anytime soon. He said, "Unlikely. They have a huge place in my heart. They raised me. But my music is my music, and I play it how I want. I am literally incapable of taking direction." And I love that answer. I really do. While Cody's answer is almost an empathetic no, anything can happen in the world of wrestling. Many wrestlers who were once on the outs with the company found their return, like Kurt Angle, who came back to the WWE in 2017. While anything is possible in the future, it looks like Rhodes is enjoying walking to the beat of his own drum. Some even think that if the All-In event is successful, Cody may even start his own promotion. Cody is set to take on Punishment Martinez at the Ring of Honor Bound by Honor on Friday, and All In will be held at the Sears Center Arena on September 1st, 2018. Many wrestlers are lined up for the Chicago event, including wrestling superstar Kenny Omega, and while wrestling fans look forward to the event, despite Cody's recent tweet, many are still hopeful that he will one day find his way back to the WWE. Cody Rhodes is one of those superstars who has made it evident that there is life outside of the WWE. There is more than enough life outside of the WWE. And I know Cody Rhodes' case is few and far between. There are many indie wrestlers out there who are even struggling to make income wrestling. But Cody Rhodes has shown that he's an absolutely brilliant marketing and self-promoter. He really has, and he really takes you back to those glory days of wrestling that so many guys talk about. I hear Jim Ross on his podcast praising Cody Rhodes for what he does and how he is implementing somewhat of the old school into the way he promotes himself and the way he's pushing everything that he's doing. Same thing with the Young Bucks and Kenny Omega. The Bullet Club in its entirety has done a fantastic job, not just at being great wrestlers, as we all know they are. Kenny Omega often gets referred to as the best wrestler in the world. I would argue that AJ Styles, but then again, I'm not watching Kenny Omega week in and week out that much, so I can't really make that comparison. But that's besides the point, because the way these guys, they're not just brilliant in the ring, the way these guys have handled themselves in their marketing. And Cody Rhodes has really given a lot of people hope that they can really make it out in the indie scene and that they can overcome the WWE and this huge monopoly that they have over the wrestling industry. And I think that as long as Cody Rhodes continues to be successful in the indie scene, I don't think he's going anywhere. He is realistically the face of the wrestling indies, and I think he's comfortable in that position. He knows that if he goes back to the WWE, he's going to be limited in what he can do. And as much as I'd like to see a Kenny Omega and a Cody Rhodes in the WWE, at the same time, I don't want to see a Cody Rhodes and a Kenny Omega in the WWE. Because, yeah, I want to see that. I want to see Cody versus Styles. I want to see Omega versus Styles. I want to see the Young Bucks versus Sheamus and Cesaro versus the Usos. I want to see all this crap happen. I do. But then again, WWE has an enormous track record of ruining star after star after star who has come in. I mean, it's been changing as of late, but there's just been so many indie talent that's even been successful in NXT and that's just been completely tarnished on the main roster. There's so much of that. I mean, Cody Rhodes, he's in the indies because he was tarnished on the main roster. He was not used. I mean, there are so many indies names. Juice Robinson, who was not used correctly. Drew McIntyre had to go to the indies, and he was super successful because he was not used correctly. EC3 left the WWE because he was not used correctly. So, I mean, realistically, you think about it, and there's just so much that these guys have to offer to the indie scene, and I think they love that because they can realistically do whatever they want, and there's nothing better in life, at least for me, than that sense of progression, that sense that we're growing, we're making our way up, and I feel like that's a feeling that Cody Rhodes has, and he's very much appreciating that he has as well, and he's soaking in the moment. He's soaking in the moment because each and every single night he's able to go out there, do what he wants to do, wrestle great matches, put on great promos, and he can say whatever he wants. He can call out whoever he wants. He's not being limited by this huge corporate machine, and I feel like that's a feeling that gives you an advantage in the indie scene, much more so than you would ever have in the WWE. I mean, just to list more examples here, you look at the broken Matt Hardy character in TNA. Absolutely amazing, completely was turning around TNA, leaves TNA, comes to the WWE. Woken Matt Hardy is nothing more than a side act, at least from what we've seen so far on WWE television. So that's my stance on that. To a degree, I would love to see Cody Rhodes come back to the WWE. I would, because there's so many matches to offer. I mean, he's called out Roman Reigns. I'd love to see Roman Reigns versus Cody Rhodes. Cody Rhodes, he's made himself into a name that if he does come back to the WWE, he's going to be a main event talent. You cannot neglect that. But at the same time, is he going to be the main event talent that we want to see? Is WWE going to book him correctly? Are they going to give him the proper storyline? Are they going to give him this amazing feud with Roman Reigns, with AJ Styles, with Nakamura, with this guy, the next guy? No. We're overall always going to get the best quality out of Cody Rhodes in the iteration that he is right now. And I believe that cannot be denied. That is my thought on that. For now, we move on here to the next news story. And for now, we move on here to Titus World Slide. Oh, I don't know how many times I have watched this clip of Titus botching from the greatest Royal Rumble. I cannot stop laughing each and every single time that I see it. And Vince McMahon's reaction to Titus's botch has officially been revealed. Holy crap. This is hilarious. Absolutely groundbreakingly hilarious. Listen to this. The Titus O'Neil entrance has already been branded by many fans as the greatest moment during the greatest Royal Rumble show in Saudi Arabia on Friday. It was clear that Michael Cole, Byron Saxton, and Corey Graves loved it because they could not stop laughing as they showed the replay several times. Wrestlers backstage were said to be laughing hard when they saw this go down on the monitor, and some didn't realize what happened and had to watch the replay to figure out that he tripped and fell underneath the ring. A source told us that Vince McMahon was almost in tears. Almost in tears. Just imagine this. Because he was laughing so hard, and he made the call for the production team to show the replay several times. In the past, especially if the botch was by a top talent, they would avoid it and move on as if nothing happened. But McMahon could not resist this time. McMahon shook O'Neil's hands. Oh my god, this sounds absolutely hilarious. He shook O'Neil's hand and gave him a pat on the back when he saw him backstage. Oh, that is absolutely hilarious. This is no big news story whatsoever. This is just amazing. Just imagine Vince McMahon watching this and laughing his ass off in the back. Oh my god. This sounds like the best thing to ever happen to WWE in a long time. This made that entire greatest Royal Rumble. I didn't think anything much of the Royal Rumble itself, but when Titus O'Neil did that, holy crap, I cannot control my laughter. I absolutely could not. That is going to be meme material for the next God knows how many years, bro. That is one of the funniest things, and it's completely natural as well, that can happen in the WWE. Titus, you won't be forgotten now. You will not be forgotten. When you retire from the WWE, you will not be forgotten for that very botch right there. That was one of the most hilarious things. Shockmaster worthy botch right there. Oh, I just want to watch Monday Night Raw to see how Titus O'Neil is going to address that. That sounds absolutely like one of the most hilarious interviews we will ever see, bro. Titus O'Neil is a funny guy, bro. He's a funny guy. I remember the Monday Night Raw that I went to. It was like August 22nd, 2016. I went to Monday Night Raw, and Titus O'Neil cut this absolutely terrible promo. Just go back and watch it. August 22nd, 2016, Titus O'Neil promo. I was sitting there in the crowd, and I just said, what the hell did he just say? Did his mic break? That's what I was thinking, because he was like, I thought he was speaking another language. He was stumbling over everything. I did not understand a single word he said, and I said, damn, it must be hard to hear people in this arena. Later in the night, or they were speaking earlier in the night, I heard them, or whoever the hell was in the ring. Mick Foley was the Raw general manager, so I heard him perfectly. But so I guess it wasn't Titus O'Neil's mic being bad. He just cut a terrible promo. Titus O'Neil has always been hilarious. Another botch of his when he caught Apollo Crews or Tyler Breeze. It was Tyler Breeze. He caught Tyler Breeze, and it was meant to do a fall-away slam into the arms of Mark Henry so Mark Henry could do the world's strongest slam. But, of course, Titus O'Neil completely overshot him, and Tyler Breeze went right over Mark Henry. That was absolutely hilarious as well. But I think out of all those botches that you can recall with Titus O'Neil, this is the funniest one, bro. And just the image in my mind, the thought of seeing Vince McMahon absolutely laughing his ass off at Titus O'Neil's absolutely world-bending botch. I mean, this tilts the world off its axis. It really, really does. But that's just a joke of a news story. For now, we move on here to the next news story right here on Behind the Mic. Taking a more serious note here on Behind the Mic, we talk about why Sami Zayn and The Big Show were not allowed to compete in the Greatest Royal Rumble match. If you go back and watch my Greatest Royal Rumble review last night right here on the Ringside Wrestling YouTube channel, you would have seen me complaining. I was like, where the hell was Sami Zayn? Kevin Owens was in the Greatest Royal Rumble. Where the hell was Sami Zayn? Well, now we have a confirmation on what happened to Sami Zayn. And source has told Ryan Satin at Pro Wrestling Sheet that it was not Zayn's decision not to go to the show. Satin was told that similar to the women, he was not booked on the show out of respect to the local culture in Saudi Arabia. For those of you who have asked about Sami Zayn, WWE issued the following statement on why he was not booked to appear at the Greatest Royal Rumble. WWE is committed to embracing individuals from all backgrounds while respecting local customs and cultural differences around the world. What we heard was that anyone that had any objections could opt to stay back and not participate on the show. Zayn was allowed to stay home, and it's believed to be because he is of Syrian descent, and he has been very public about some things that have been happening to the people in Syria. Diplomatic ties between Syria and Saudi Arabia have been strained, especially after Saudi Arabia cut off relations with them after Syria decided to close down its embassy in Damascus. I can't say that at all, but the Syrian ambassador was expelled in 2012. So that's why Sami Zayn was not allowed on the show. Saudi Arabia and Syrian relations. As far as the Big Show goes, the other name that was not allowed on this show was the Big Show. He was originally advertised for the show, but was pulled from online ads earlier this week. We don't know why yet, but he was not on the show. This might either be due to injury, because of course Big Show has been dealing with an injury as of late, or it might just be due to the fact that he's Jewish. And that was actually a report going out before the Greatest Royal Rumble that Jewish WWE superstars would not be allowed to compete at the Greatest Royal Rumble. Well, Paul Heyman was there. He's Jewish. Maybe he was allowed to go because he actually wasn't competing in the ring. Maybe that's the deal with that. But the Big Show, he's Jewish, I believe, and he was not probably allowed to go for that reason. There was another Jewish superstar, I forget who may or not have been on the show. I need to check up on that. But Sami Zayn, it probably has to do with the fact that he was being Syrian. They didn't want him there. And that's that. I mean, I don't know what the deal is with that. I mean, this just goes to show you can't be too mad about what's going on with the women on this show, because realistically, Sami Zayn as well was not allowed to compete, and he's a male superstar. So Saudi Arabia, I mean, I was laughing my ass off because they showed a video package, and some lady said, anyone is welcome to Saudi Arabia. Well, apparently not. So that was the deal right there. Sami Zayn was not allowed to compete, probably due to his Syrian descent, and that's why he was not on the show. WWE told him to stay home for that very reason. So again, with the controversy, I'm waiting for all of this to blow up in WWE's face. The event came and went. I mean, there was controversy as well having to do with Finn Balor not wearing his rainbow-colored gear. Everybody who absolutely complained about this came across as an absolute fool, because Finn Balor said that he came out and he responded to this. He said he has not worn the rainbow-colored gear in the past 6 events that he's been to, and that's because that was a WrestleMania weekend-only thing. He cleared that up completely right there, and that makes a lot of sense. It was for WrestleMania weekend only, but of course, these idiots online don't look at attention to detail, and of course they missed that fact, and Finn Balor had to deal with quite a bit of controversy. Now, people are going to see that and be like, oh, WWE, Saudi Arabia, screw these people. They took the money, they're hypocrites, and they're probably not going to see Finn Balor's response, and they're just going to sound like idiots for the rest of their lives. So, that's that. That's that right there. So, there's a lot of controversy surrounding this event, but as far as the show goes, I mean, nothing that happened or nobody who was kept off the show, that didn't stop anybody from watching the show. If it did, I believe it was very, very few people. And, I mean, overall, It was an enjoyable event, nothing too amazing. I didn't go in there expecting anything. And as far as WWE's actual initiative was going into that very show, and the initiative was to get Saudi Arabia behind them, as far as that initiative goes, I would say the show was a success. I would say that the show was a success. But for now, that's all I got to say about that. For now, we move on here to the next and final news story right here on Behind the Mic. And the final news story on Behind the Mic has to do one of the best and youngest looking prospects in the WWE right now. That, of course, is Elias. Who wants to walk with Elias? I want to walk with Elias, that's for sure. But The Undertaker has been shown in a photo to have been working out and training with Elias. This is very interesting. The Undertaker is looking good ahead of the Greatest Royal Rumble. Just hours before the show, he was seen training with fellow WWE superstar Elias. We've been getting questions about Taker's status after the show. To my knowledge, there has been no talk of retirement. In fact, he feels better than he did last year around this time because he got surgery done on his hip. Furthermore, he has not told anyone backstage at WrestleMania that the match with John Cena would be his final one. That's different from previous years where he's indicated that his body was beaten up and he wasn't sure he could continue. At the very least, there's a 50-50 chance that he will wrestle again at WrestleMania 35. But this is very interesting. I mean, Elias, it seems like a lot of people in WWE want to walk with Elias. It seems like a lot of people in WWE are high on Elias. And one of those people is Vince McMahon. And, you know, if there's something that is for sure in life is that it's never a bad thing to be on Vince McMahon's good side. And Elias is one of those people who's on Vince McMahon's good side. And rightfully so. Elias, you look at him, he's built like a brick house. Probably has to do with steroids, more likely than not. But, I mean, you got to respect his workout regime, and you really got to respect the guy. I mean, The Undertaker's a guy that he looks at you up and down, and you have his respect. I mean, there's no bigger sign of gratitude. There's no bigger honor, that's the word, that you can receive. That you can receive as a wrestler. I mean, if I was a wrestler, which I want to be, and The Undertaker looked me up and down and said, I like you, you have my respect, I respect you. I mean, I feel like that would be better than working with The Undertaker right there. For him to tell me that he respects me, that's a huge honor. That is a huge honor, no doubt about it. And, I mean, the fact that he was working out alongside Elias, that shows respect. That shows respect. So Elias does things right, not just in the ring, and he's a great in-ring performer. He not just as a heel, and he's a great heel. Not just on the mic, and he's great on the mic, but as well as backstage when it comes to talking to people, when it comes to getting behind the right people. Elias is doing things right, and he's going to be a big star in the WWE, future Intercontinental Champion. If they want to push this guy to the top, future WWE Champion. I'd love to see Elias as a world champion. He's great at what he does, and he's been one of those guys who, despite never really being, you think about it, Elias has never really had an official, feud, we're going pay-per-view from pay-per-view feuding, but this guy has been on the main roster for, what now, a year? Has it been a year that Elias has been on the main roster? Holy shit, it might be a year already, and I haven't gotten tired of this act, and he's realistically been everywhere and been doing big things, and he has a lot of momentum. So Elias is a great act on WWE television. Just reminds me of this classic heel, and that's exactly what he does. One of the only guys to get genuine heel heat week in and week out. I mean, he's still a cool heel. I still love the guy. I still want to walk with Elias. But he gets heat. He gets booed. He does things right. And Elias is no doubt one of the best acts on WWE television right now. One of the most entertaining parts of Monday Night Raw, alongside Braun Strowman. Elias is right up there. But as far as The Undertaker goes, it's good to hear that he feels better. But, I mean, I feel that after seeing that matchup with Roman Reigns, it's time to hang up the boots. The John Cena matchup was about 3 minutes. He didn't do anything out of the ordinary. And the matchup we seen last night with Rusev in the Greatest Royal Rumble. I mean, he's not going to be the Undertaker that's going to be putting on great matches night in and night out. And quite frankly, it bothers me. It bothers me having to see him in the ring and just be like, is he okay? Is he okay? I want to go in there and feel like he's the dead man. The only part of the Undertaker that feels like the dead man, the phenom, the man who's been doing all this great stuff in WWE for the past 3 decades. The only part of the Undertaker that really still lives up to that is the entrance. And I mean, as you can tell by the fact that I'm not a fan of Bobby Roode as a babyface, that I wasn't a fan of Shinsuke Nakamura when he was taking L's from Jinder Mahal each and every single week and not putting on that great matches with Jinder Mahal regardless. The entrance that's not all it takes to sell me. I want to see some great matches. I want to see some great promos. And The Undertaker has never been the type to put on a great promo at all or even speak at all. And at this point in the game, he's not in the condition that he can put on a great match. The Undertaker has peaked. And I hate to say that. I hate that I'm here and I'm saying that right now. But it's time for him to hang up the boots. I think that's something that we need to realize. Would I love to see him work with an Elias? There's no doubt about that. But as far as The Undertaker in-ring goes and what he's doing, it's great to hear that he's feeling better. But I want him to keep feeling better and keep living life like that and not feel the need to come back to the WWE and keep wrestling. I mean, at this point, you can argue the fact that The Undertaker is going to be wrestling for the next, 30 years. I mean, he's going to be wrestling until he's in the grave himself. He's going to be wrestling until he's actually the dead man. And I'm afraid of that. Because he's well past his prime. I'd say that the last year that The Undertaker was realistically on his A game was WrestleMania 29 when he had that matchup with CM Punk. I think he was still able to put on a great matchup past that, like at WrestleMania 30, but he wasn't in there with the best in the ring, Brock Lesnar, or he wasn't in there putting on a classic with Brock Lesnar by any means. Those two weren't going to put on a classic. Actually, the last year that Undertaker was going to put on a good matchup was probably 2015, because he had the Hell in a Cell with Brock Lesnar and the SummerSlam match with Brock Lesnar, and that was all some great stuff. So 2015, I would say, myself, was the last year that The Undertaker was putting on a great matchup. That's what I would say myself. He's past of it. Hopefully, he can be in there. I mean, I wasn't expecting anything amazing from him and Rusev, but hopefully he can be in there. Maybe they'll put him in there with an AJ Styles one day. Maybe they'll put The Undertaker against AJ Styles. That's the only thing that I'm realistically excited about. Maybe The Undertaker will be in there with AJ Styles, and maybe that's when we see The Undertaker put on a 4-star matchup again. I mean, because you think about the guys he's been in the ring with as of late: 32, Shane McMahon; 33, Roman Reigns; 34, a 3-minute match with John Cena. And Rusev, I mean, it's big guy versus big guy. That's what Rusev is. Rusev, this was really a gimmick matchup. You're really not going to see anything amazing in a casket matchup. So maybe that's the deal with that. Maybe he needs to be in there with a Nakamura or a Styles or somebody who's just great in the ring. Because at this point in the game, Undertaker's no longer that ring general. But then again, the way you can look at it as well is that he hasn't necessarily been in there with the Shawn Michaels or a CM Punk or a Daniel Bryan. I'd love to see Undertaker versus Daniel Bryan, but that's just my stance on that. I want to see The Undertaker, and believe me, I love The Undertaker. He's one of my favorite of all time. He's probably number 2 after Shawn Michaels as far as in ring goes, but I just don't like seeing him at this stage of the game. I wanted to see The Undertaker continue taking from that fountain of youth, and as of late, that's not what we've been seeing at all. But that is besides the point. We move on here to the closing segments of Behind the Mic. I hope you guys have enjoyed each and every single thing that you have heard here on Behind the Mic, because for now, we're going to be closing up the show. Wow, I am surprised. I actually went pretty short for Behind the Mic. Usually, I blabber on for like 60 minutes or something like that, but we made it a shorter episode of Behind the Mic. Not too much news this weekend, but I'm sure that next weekend, especially going into Backlash pay-per-view and whatever's beyond that, we're going to get a lot of news. But that was Behind the Mic. A lot of interesting news stories this week on Behind the Mic. Hope you enjoyed each and every single thing you heard. Hopefully you heard or you enjoyed my banter. Of course, if you did, make sure to subscribe to the Ringside Wrestling YouTube channel, because we talk about everything regarding the WWE right here on the Ringside Wrestling YouTube channel. So make sure not to miss any of that. Of course, make sure to like this video if you enjoy what you're hearing here. Make sure to dislike if you don't. I really don't care. And of course, make sure to leave an enlightenment in the enlightenment box down below, because for now, that is going to be all on Behind the Mic, episode number 62. I hope you enjoyed each and every single thing you heard here, because for now, this has been Joel Perez, and for now, I am out of here. Thank you very, very much for watching this video. I will see you next time right here on Ringside Wrestling.